Hey, Aster here, and today I kind of wanted to talk about this little interview that I saw while the Genshin Impact developers talk about endgame content. If you've been on the Genshin Twitter recently, you do know that some content creators have also voiced their opinions on this matter, so I'm gonna be giving my 2 cents on what's going on and my personal thoughts on everything. I haven't actually read the article, I just know that some people are talking about this and that this has something to do with the endgame, and I wanted to make a video on it because I did want to give my own personal thoughts on this matter. To talk about endgame in Genshin Impact is something that is you constantly hear it, right? You constantly hear that there's no endgame content in Genshin, and then some people argue that Genshin doesn't need endgame content at the moment because it's not even in the endgame or just in Sumeru. But today I'm going to reconsider that by hearing what the Genshin Impact developers are planning for the endgame content. And let's see if they actually brought something meaningful and welcoming newcomers. Okay, so right off the bat, that title feels a little weird. As much as Genshin Impact likes to think that it's very welcoming to newcomers, Genshin Impact is not welcoming to newcomers. As a veteran player myself, I can confidently say that Genshin Impact's the disparity between the content for newcomers versus the content for old players is something that has never been addressed properly, and I hope that in this interview they do, because if you realize, a lot of Genshin's content is event-based and time-lock-based, so to say that Genshin Impact is newbie-friendly, or newcomer-friendly rather, not newbie, it's something that is pretty weird. I personally disagree. A lot of the content is locked behind time events. A lot of the content, especially not only the primo gems actually, but also the story content, which I am really appalled by the way that a lot of the story content is locked behind events, because most of the time it's just the gameplay events that are normally behind an event wall. But story content, important story contexts, are hidden behind event gates. So no, Genshin Impact is not welcoming to newcomers, especially from a lore and gameplay standpoint. But from just a base game, like for the Archon Quest, I can definitely say that it is. So anyway, let's move on from that. So we have this is the trailer for 3.1, so let's hear what they've got to say. GameSpot, versions 3.0 and 3.1 are expected to be 1 week shorter than usual. In the future, will you be continuing with these shortened version lengths, or should players expect update releases to return to their former pace? Starting from 3.0 to the end of 3.2, the length of each update will be shortened to 5 weeks, but a shorter update cycle will not influence the quality of gameplay and content. Please stay tuned. I see, so this was basically a reply to what happened with the Ayaka situation. If you don't remember, it's the one where China was basically on a lockdown, so Genshin had to also adjust accordingly because it was technically still China-based despite having Singaporean ties. So this is a way of compensating for that, and I'm pretty happy actually that it's pretty short. I mean, as someone who's a full student, right, it kind of sucks, but at the same time, I think it's a really good quality change that the pacing is a little faster. And I will say though that the 3.0 and 3.1, the quality of the events, the quality of the story quests, they were not affected whatsoever. Like, you would think that their shorter time means less content or less quality. No, I can confidently say that 3.0 and 3.1 have been absolute bangers. So, you know, good on them. Good on them for still pumping up, if not better quality content than what happened in Inazuma. So, kudos to that. Currently, the Spiral Abyss is the only true endgame content for players at high adventure ranks. Are there any plans to release new permanent endgame content in the same vein as the Spiral Abyss? Okay, so this one's going to be more gameplay heavy, and I'm actually interested in what this is to say. Spiral Abyss is one of the most effective ways for players to test out their party compositions and combat strength. If we design another type of permanent endgame content that is similar to the Spiral Abyss, it might end up creating excessive anxiety for our players. Not everyone is excited, or interested rather, in Muskery. Just like Genius Invocation TCG that we unveiled in the special program for version 3.2, we are also working on designing more interesting gameplay in the future. As an open-world game, Genshin Impact has natural compatibility with various types of gameplays, which gives us confidence in long-term operation. I agree with this one. I think the 1.4 update introduced us to a lot of gameplay mechanics that felt like mini-games, and I really think that Genshin Impact has that. It's a blank canvas, if I do say so like that. You have The Sims in the form of the teapot, you have Fall Guys at one time, you had Super Mario Maker. I think that the versatility not only works for like a story perspective because it's technically a fully fledged world, it also works from a gameplay perspective where Genshin is pretty much a blank canvas. It's not just a fighting game, something like that. But at the same time, I am kind of disappointed that they're not focusing on the fact that Genshin is still a fighting game. As much as I love the minigames, I am a big fan of the TCG. I think out of all the new content that's gonna come out besides the anime, I am super excited for Genius Invocation as someone that really, really loves card games. I also do want to point out though that there are a lot of players that focus on party composition and combat strength because we invest so much time in Resin. The thing about artifacts is the payoff in the end where you actually get to use it in difficult content. And the thing is, I think the Spiral Abyss is a little too short. I genuinely think that if they made Spiral Abyss into just 1 week resets, kind of like weekly strikes in other games, kind of like weekly bounties, weekly bosses. It's 600 Primo Gems, yes, but you can never go too wrong with an extra 1,200 Primo Gems, which sounds like a lot, but it's like 7 pulls, okay? It's like 7 to 8 pulls, calm down. But I also do want to say from a gameplay perspective that it actually kind of feels bad that you don't have a lot more content that tests the party composition and combat strength. Like, I know that they don't want to quote-unquote invoke anxiety. It's the weirdest thing because a lot of people, like, the anxiety comes not from the gameplay but from the lore. The amount of dialogue that you need to read to even dent the surface of Genshin's story is so much. As a lore content creator, I am overblown. So I've been seeing a lot of people say that the anxiety doesn't come from the gameplay. Like, literally nobody cares about the gameplay. They just want to play a fighting game. Genshin Impact is going into year 2 with an ever-expanding roster. See, some older characters might get left behind as a power creep settles in and newer characters become much stronger choices. Is there a plan in place to potentially upgrade older characters and make them more viable? If a character is only assessed by a single dimension of numerical strength, power creep would be indeed an issue. However, in Genshin Impact, the rules of gameplay are more impactful than how strong a character is. Therefore, new battlegrounds, new challenge levels, or even now team builds all have potential to bring new life to existing content. I agree with this. As someone that plays League of Legends, I genuinely think that power creep is not that big of a deal in Genshin. And it shouldn't be that big of a deal in Genshin because Genshin is a single player game. But I do understand that there is power creep that's happening. For example, like Diluc used to be the really, really pug champ of DPSs, and then he got slowly power cut by Hu Tao, by Ganyu, etc, etc. The thing is, I genuinely do agree with their statement that power creep is not among the priorities right now, and that other factors, for example, new battlegrounds, new challenge levels, and new team builds can really make a character shine. If someone really wants to advocate against power creep, what's gonna happen is a really bad alternative. What they're going to do is they're going to introduce those events that have character-specific buffs that are catered to the older characters. I can already see that being one really bad extreme that they are going to go for just to quote-unquote beat the power creep. But in reality, power creep isn't that big of a deal. Like, Genshin's endgame is not that hard. You can definitely clear content with Diluc and also clear content with Hu Tao, and it'll just be the same. Like, you'll save yourself like a couple of seconds, sure, but at the same time, I don't think power creep or even meta is that big of a deal when a lot of the new events, especially the fighting events, have a lot of buffs. A lot of buffs that buff Pyro collectively or buff Hydro collectively, or just the enemies that are immune or vulnerable to certain elements. Old characters will still have a place. The introduction of Dendro has created plenty of new ways to cause elemental reactions, but some elements have been left out. Has there been any discussion regarding the addition of new reactions for existing elements? For example, in the future, could there be a new Jo and Dendro reaction? We have no plans for the time being. Okay, no problem with that. With the relief of the Dendro element, the 7-element system has become somewhat complex. That is true. If you see the new way of proccing Hyper Bloom and then Hyper Bloom and then the auras, I just some people perfect that. It's a min-max system, but most of the time the casual players don't really perfect that, so that's okay. And I don't know who really is bothered by the fact that there's no Geo. I'm wondering if Geo actually procs Crystallize with Dendro, but I don't think it does. I'm not quite sure because I haven't built my Tignari. And I think that I don't have an opinion on this one. I think it's okay. Dendro, I think as an element, has been pretty well received and pretty good. Honestly, pretty fun, pretty cute too. Is there a chance we can see a cap increase for original Resin or a quicker regeneration rate to allow players to take on more of these challenges every day? Please say yes. Please say yes. Yeah, okay, we know that Resin is needed. Meanwhile, we're also providing more options for gamers to obtain character development items. For example, many character and weapon essential materials can be obtained and redeemed from events that we run periodically. That doesn't answer the question. But it does. It's no. I genuinely don't understand why they don't buff the Resin system. They've been really vague about this. I wonder why. Like, I wonder if there's some marketing team that 8 minutes per Resin is the perfect formula. I am confused. I am genuinely confused. Like, I'm sure everyone and their mothers just want the Resin cap to be longer. It's not even that we want to remove Resin entirely, because we already understand that that's a fundamental in Genshin and Gacha as an entirety as, you know, a mobile game. But we just want faster, like, you know, recharge. Like, make it 6 minutes or something. Please! New players may have been a bit lost when starting the Summertime Odyssey event because they missed Fischl and Mona's first introductions. This also happened when Scaramouche showed up in Inazuma's Arc Conquest. True! Okay, now we're talking to the lore. Okay, we're talking about the lore, guys. Is the team considering adding a way for new players to see or replay old story-related content and cutscenes that only existed in past limited time events? It is time. Whoever is making this questionnaire, God bless your soul for actually listening to the problems of Genshin Impact's players. Like, from all avenues. From the endgame content to the Resin cap to the lore. Thank you. This is a really, really, like, honestly, just like, I'm already halfway, but I really like this interview a lot. We're aware of this issue and are looking for solutions on it. On one hand, stories from limited time events shall never become barriers to understanding and playing Arc quests. That feels like it should be true. But I also feel like, I don't know. On the other hand, we're also working on beginner tutorial adjustments, client capacity optimization, intelligent management of past content, and other optimizations. And as our technology and capacity grow, we hope to have useful solutions that players want. Do it like Arc Conquest interludes. Like, I know it's not that easy, and I know it's going to have a lot of storage space, but Genshin's already 90 gig. Like, Genshin's already 90 gig, just double down. If anything, the event quests are some of the most fleshed out parts of Genshin's story that a lot of the new players don't have. Albedo's story is hidden behind time, like real life time. Kazuha's story was basically hidden away in 2.6, and Kazuha's and the other part in the island in the Golden Apple Archipelago, that was Kazuha's time to shine. And it kind of feels weird that the event quests are much more fleshed out than the Arc Conquest when it comes to characters, but that's what they don't in the story. Like, even just the event quest. I think that Arc Conquest Interlude did a really good job for that, by the way. Whoever's in charge of their Arc Conquest Interlude, just keep them in charge of that. Just make them interludes, because that's what they are. That's what an interlude means. They're insert chapters in the middle of the really big Arc Conquests. A lot of people were saying that they can't make them Arc Conquests because they don't deserve it, quote unquote. It just feels weird that that argument is being thrown around, that the event quests should not be a part of, like, the Arc Conquest interlude because it's not an Arc Conquest or there's no Archon, quote unquote. That's basically it. So I'm really hoping that they introduce more content that is permanent, because I feel really bad for new players that never get to experience Albedo's story. Because once Albedo snaps and kills everything in Mondstadt, new players would have no idea who Albedo is. New players are going to chalk it up to the fact that Albedo is just, oh, he didn't have a character development, oh, we just got a rushed character that we're supposed to care about. When in reality, he was developed for like 4 or 6 years. Once we get to that part of the story. But I think that's the end of this. No, there's more, never mind. Costumes were added to the game last year, providing new stylish looks for some characters. How likely is it that the Traveler becomes a recipient of one of those costumes? It would be interesting to see the Traveler in clothing that represents some of the regions. It is an intriguing idea to design outfits and accessories with regional characteristics for the Traveler. We don't have anything to share on that front, but we're always considering new ideas. Well, they didn't say no, So can we get the Shrine Maiden Aether that, you know, you guys promised us in the lore? Just a thought, you know, like the Shrine Maiden Aether? It's just a thought. As a follow-up to the previous question, Aether Limines seem to get fun little accessories during certain quests, like a mask or flower crown, but they can only be worn for short periods of time. Have you ever considered turning these temporary accessories into permanent cosmetics? That is true. That is really, really good. It would be really funny for them to just have the Fatui mask. I think they do have the Fatui mask in their inventory, so, you know, I'm pretty interested in that. I wonder if they will.